And we are back live. This is it, the final program of NDI November. It's been 3 weeks. We've been doing 3 shows a week, plus user spotlights, interviews, and other things. And today we have who I consider to be the best guest you could ever have for NDI November, the father of NDI, the inventor of NDI. We all knew him as the head of new tech for years and years and years, and we've got him on the show. Welcome to the show, Andrew Cross.
It is my pleasure, and I'm so happy to be back. It's like coming home, if you will. So the feelings are totally mutual. Thank you.
No, well, you're not with BizRT or New Tech anymore. We know you keep tabs on where the industry is and where it's going. So I want to jump right in and say, you're the father of the whole thing, and you can see where it's come in the last 5 years, especially. I don't know if it's beyond where you thought it would be or on schedule where you thought it would be, but talk to us about how you would describe the current state of NDI technology. How is it involved since its inception, and do you think it's where you thought it would be when you started the whole thing?
Well, I think it clearly. So first of all, if I think where it is compared to when we started it, I mean, it's clearly gone far, far, far beyond where I ever thought it could ever be. I think about 3 years ago, though, it became clear that we'd bitten off more than we expected in a good way. So I think it's exceeded where we ever thought. Look, in reality, we were a small Texan company, and we decided to release a video standard. I mean, seriously, what were we thinking? And it's so clearly it's exceeded anything that we'd hoped for. And I think that that was in part because I think we had a vision for what we wanted to do that other people saw, but I think in part that is because a lot of other companies saw the same thing, and so the credit should never just be with us. I think that this has been something that has been created because lots of people saw and wanted to make the same thing happen and make video more accessible. And so yes, it's exceeded what we thought it would, but maybe not what maybe it's exactly what we dreamed it could be.
Yeah, and
That's probably the truth.
if you'll recall, during the pandemic, you were our keynote speaker, and you did a line that I use in meetings constantly, all the time, with both customers and vendors, and that was that the adoption leapt 5 years ahead, and that was everyone's job to get the technology to keep up with people's expectations on a technology they were now broadly using. And quite frankly, I don't think we would have gotten through as a industry the pandemic on a production level, what we were able to produce, had NDI not been a part of it. It really allowed certain workflows to happen that before NDI, I don't know that you could have gotten through in buildings where you couldn't have people in the building.
Yeah, yes, but I think it's more than that. We're at this unique. We've become we're at this unique point in kind of the development of technology in many ways of as a whole. I think 15 years ago we saw that computers were going to get fast enough to do real-time video, and so new tech, we bet on that, and we built these real-time video production tools. But yet then the internet and the video came along just later, and it is a combination of all these pieces that has made it so that today anyone anywhere can produce video and share it with everybody else, and we have the sites to deliver it. We have the pipes that are now sufficiently fast that we can share it. The equipment has become
Yeah.
affordable enough that we can do it. And what happened is all of that kind of existed, and yet production didn't change that much because there's a lot of momentum out there in the real world. The pandemic was a forcing function that said, okay, so you need to change. And we were very lucky, because if this had been 15 years ago, the whole business world would have gone dark. But the technology was all there, and it was this forcing function that allowed us to go off and really see that shows and production and can continue. We can continue to communicate with each other in this new world. And I think that was remarkable, and NDI was clearly part of that. But there was there was a bigger trend there that enabled us to do that.
So let's talk about emerging trends next. What emerging trend in technology and media production do you think will have the most impact on the future development and adoption of NDI?
Um, that is a good and difficult question, and I'm going to give the first. I'm going to give first the boring answer, which is I think that as more people get used to doing more video on computers, doing it in the cloud, doing it local, using IP as their primary form of communication, as cameras become increasingly in effect computers, we're moving to a world where everything has a processor in it, everything has a network connection on it, it's all interconnected. And when you do that, things like NDI are going to become far more prevalent, because NDI is basically the native language of computers and software talking video. And so I think that all the trends are there, the trends in technology are there that mean that things like NDI are going to propagate and grow and continue to do so for quite some time. I think that the really bigger picture answer that is maybe the less obvious thing is how do we get to a point where video production gets fundamentally easier, because that will be what then pushes it even further. And there, technologies like AI in non-obvious ways and not the ways that most people are thinking are likely to make a very big difference. And I think that it will be a combination where things like AI make production so much easier. It makes it so much easier to make a great looking show that far more people can do it. But then because the IP connectivity to easily hook up the cameras to the systems anywhere, get it to the internet and stream it are there, which is enabled by NDI. So I kind of see AI and NDI as this symbiotic, pair that really offer, where most likely 10 years from now, when you ask me that question, you'll say, have the last 10 years been, that'll be the answer.
So, we can buy a smart TV now that lets you get Netflix and all that other stuff. I'm reading that what you're seeing is a world where perhaps for production monitors that we use in production environments, they would have NDI in them. The cameras would have NDI in them. So we wouldn't need anything other than plugging them into the network. But I want to go into the AI thing a little bit because, I've thought about that a lot. And I think about, we sell a lot of products, especially, TriCasters into the worship community. And I look at like a house of worship and how that show is produced. I say, basically, if you had 10 really good operators record what they did every week for 10 weeks, you got to think an NDI would figure out how to be able to produce a really good church production show where all the operator was really doing was making sure nothing went wrong, as opposed to actually, producing the show. Is that what you're hinting at?
So yes, but I think that the AI question, and the reason why I brought up AI, and this is a much longer conversation, but it is because I think that what we need to truly propel the industry forwards is not going to be how do we make incremental changes. Incremental changes will mean 10% more people are producing video. It gets 10% easier. So the big question is, how do you make it 200%? How do you make it 1,000% easier? And that is where I think that the way we produce video just needs to change a bit. And I think that when you look at the technologies out there that are the most likely to enable that, it's most likely going to be something around generative AI that just makes it fundamentally easier to produce a show. If you use AI for generating images, you've gone from needing some actual skill to do so to where you just need skill to guide a computer to do it. And I don't think that is quite the same thing as maybe AI assisted drawing tools. They do much more than that. And I think that the same has got to happen in video. And when that happens, it will enable far more people in ways that we don't see today. So I don't think that the AI revolution will just be how do you put an AI layer on top of what we've got. I think you need to go back and think again about what and how do you produce shows. And I think that when that happens, that will be very, very exciting. And I think NDI there needs to be a way to transport video around in that world easily on IP networks, in and out of computers in different places, of which NDI is clearly the prevalent way and the best way to currently do that.
Cool. So let's pull it back from the AI speculation and get more into NDI again, and that is expansion to diverse sectors. Now, if you remember when we first met, we were talking about NDI. One of my first thoughts was, this is going to kill digital signage because I could be able to send a customized video message to any monitor anywhere, so in an airport or what have you. And we have seen, NDI being used in the AV space in the conference rooms, and that's really something that's coming on. But where do you see NDI expanding beyond that, the corporate environments? Like medical, science, research, manufacturing. Talk to us about those other areas that you could see NDI coming into that aren't pro video production.
So, so I'm going to give a horrible answer to that, which is I see it expanding into all of them, but I should take a step back and explain why I see that, and then I'll tell you which ones I think it has the hardest time in. Look, w- computers typically display websites are currently static. Printed word is currently static. So if you think about your local restaurant, or they have a website and it's a static website, there's nothing in technology today that means it needs to stay static. And so clearly moving pictures, they are the best way of communicating stuff. And so increasingly everything we do across every field is going to move towards making images move, which is video. And as they do that, and it's on computers, you need ways to move that video around. So I see that NDI has opportunity in all these markets. When you're producing video for your local restaurant, or whether you are in a school, or whether you are in a store, you're going to want to use video. And if you're going to do it on IP, you need a good way of interchanging the video content. And that is going to be NDI, which makes it the easiest today. You need, the fact that we're gigabit, the fact that we work well on Wi-Fi, the fact that we move in and out of the cloud are what mean that NDI is going to be the way you do those. Now, the places where it's going to be the slowest are the ones where changes are slower. So things like medical technologies often need to go through a lot of certification process, a lot of regulatory overhead, a lot of privacy concerns. And so those tend to slow, the natural progression of technology down. But in terms of where is video going to be important, it is clearly the single most important way humans have to communicate with each other. And NDI is how you will do that. And so I think that there's just huge areas that it can move into. And I almost find that you can't, anywhere where you see a still image today, you need to be thinking in 5 years' time that should be a moving image. And when you do that, the possibilities are truly endless.
Great answer. Now, we just did the NAB New York show, and we really saw that the big talk was not NDI as much as it was SMPTE 2110. So we've got industry standards. Everyone's tells me when I talk to NDI is a part of that standard. It's bigger than that. But where do you see NDI interacting with standards like ST 2110, and what role do these standards play in shaping the future landscape of IP-based video production technologies? And how will NDI fit in that role, or will it be replaced by that role?
Yes. So that's a great question. And I've been, so first of all, I think I just want to be clear, and I think I've said this many times. I think 2110 serves an amazing purpose and it does it really well, as does IPMX, by the way, which is kind of
Yep.
the AV version. Those are great standards. Um, and if you want a replacement for an SDI cable, they really work very well and they solve that problem very well. If what you're trying to do is work out how do we get every software tool anywhere in the world to talk together, then NDI is a great standard, if you will. I think also that the whole concept of standards needs to be thought about very carefully, because when you look at 2110, and I'm not picking on them, it's just a great example. This has been a standard that's been in play for what, 10 years plus. And what's happening in technology has generally been that technology is progressing faster and faster and faster and faster. If you look at AI 2 years ago, we didn't even think that something like ChatGPT was possible. And yet here we are today, one generation almost beyond where ChatGPT was. And so one of the real challenges in the industry for standards is that technology has started to move much faster than standards can be created. And so, if your desire is innovation, standards might not be the best way to do it. And so, with NDI, our goal was never. I mean, we totally believed that we wanted to work with everybody. We totally believed that we wanted to make this accessible to everybody, but we also truly believed that maintaining the ability to move fast and to innovate was what was the single most important thing because technology is advancing so fast. And so there really needs to be a reckoning. I think NDI has moved very, very fast, faster than most other similar standards, because it didn't get stuck in some version that there was 10 years ago. And so there's this big question today of how standards fit that role. And I would encourage everybody to think very carefully about that, because the time it takes to come up with a standard today is longer than new technology can be developed. And if our goal is to solve problems for customers, we want to get them the best technology possible as quickly as possible. And that's what NDI did. And that's why I believe that it grew so fast. I think that this is an interesting question, and it will be very interesting to see where things go over the next year or two, because I just think technology is moving so much faster than the standards that it's a problem that's got to be solved somehow. NDI solved it in one way. I still believe that it continues to innovate as a result of the approach that we took, which was the right one, and that has been very beneficial to vendors and to customers alike.
So let's pick up on that a little bit and go more a little specific to sustainability and scalability with NDI. And that is, as this technology evolves so rapidly, how does NDI plan to maintain its relevance and scalability in the face of these new innovations and standards? Will it be NDI keeps growing, or is there something that's, MDI that's going to come, or, some next level of something? Where do you really think we're going to be? Because I think you're right. 2110 is such a big umbrella for the broadcast in the world to use, and it's got a stall-in committee for a while every now and then, because there's just so
Yeah.
many people stirring the pot and mixing the soup. But you're right. Innovation happens from disruption. It happens from disruptors, people with a vision who just say, damn, I know we can do this smarter and better, and I'm going to show people they can. And that's essentially what you did with NDI, and I don't want to see it go away. I think it's got a bright future, but I also think the standard puts more pressure on NDI to have to evolve even faster to show that it's still relevant. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely, and I think that that's a great thing. In many ways, the standard that we've all agreed on, everybody's agreed on, is that IP is the standard. And the great thing about IP is that you can put 2110, NDI, or NDI 7, 8, 9, all down the same wire, and that means that we can all, as an industry, can innovate. And I believe that NDI, we've got a heritage of innovation. And I believe, even though I'm not directly involved anymore, but I believe that that has been the heritage of NDI. I believe it will continue to do so. I think that it was built on a foundation where software was the key rather than hardware, which means that explicitly means that it can develop fast. The fact that it has an SDK where VizRT implements that SDK means that they could come up with a cool idea tomorrow, put it out the next day. That is not possible in any other standard. And that is something that has always made NDI unique, and means that it can adapt faster, can be innovated faster, and can offer people more as a result. That has got some downsides, and people, there were definitely some downsides to that approach, but there were some huge upsides, which are that it can move faster than anybody else, which is great for the industry. And so I truly believe that NDI has got everything it needs to continue to stay at the forefront and to innovate faster than anybody else can. And that's a wonderful thing, and that is what NDI has shown that it can continue to do.
And one of the things that when we were first, one of my frustrations as someone who resold the products had to do with your commitment to keeping it open. And what I really wanted was someone to give me a switch that would really be IP and NDI optimized. And the guys at Netgear finally got around to doing that. And that has really helped us in a huge way, because the next question is really, what comes down to it. That is, cross-platform compatibility is the DNA of NDI, but how do we make that cross-platform compatibility usable by a less and less technical leveled person, where we don't need someone who has an engineering PhD in NDI to be able to set up a studio and make it work? So with the diversity of devices and platforms used in the industry, how does NDI continue to ensure compatibility and seamless integration across various operating systems and hardware?
Well, I think that clearly having an API by one vendor means that we don't need to, like, we don't need to cross test every piece of equipment with every other piece of equipment, because if the API works, it means that the API works, which means it can talk to itself. And so the fact that you don't have 10 vendors with 10 implementations, all which did slightly different things, and then one of them chose that there was a way to optimize it for his use case slightly better, which then hurt somebody else, you don't have any of those problems, which is a clear benefit that NDI has. I think that there's this dichotomy between you wanting to create something that works everywhere, and then you want to constrain something, and you have to work out where you fit on that spectrum. And with NDI, our mission was clear: we want to enable video for everybody. That broader mission comes with some downsides, which means that sometimes controlling the bandwidth and so on is more difficult, because we chose to solve such a broad problem for so many people. And I think that the honest answer is, this is where great AV partners and players and distributors and resellers and experts are so valuable, because they truly understand it. And for the people who need that level of support service, they can go and get it. And yet it continues to work for everybody, including people who maybe don't have that same need. And I think that that is a benefit, and I think that that brings value to the market. It brings value where it's not new tech or VisRT solving every problem. It means that the resellers, the integrators, continue to bring something of significant value and to be able to help customers, which is great for them and it's great for the customer. So I don't see that as a downside. I think that that is a good thing that the industry also need.
I think one of the keys here is that the folks at VisRT who now own NDI have to be vigilant. And what I mean by that is, for a while there were products that were, I'm going to call NDI-ish. They did some subset of NDI, but they weren't truly NDI. And when Viz kind of released HX3 and NDI5, they kind of reset that bar. And I think they have to learn from that and remember what they did, and always make sure that they don't allow, I'm going to use the word corrupted, but you know what I mean, version
Yeah,
of NDI to infiltrate.
I totally agree, and let me commend them. I think that I am in complete agreement. I think that when we started out, NDI grew like wildfire, and suddenly there were all these devices, some which we'd never seen or used, and I think it was a very smart move with HX3 and with NDI5 to start to find a way to standardize that, but not in a way that also was so difficult for everybody that it became an impediment to growth. So I think that they've really got that balance right, and I totally commend. I think that that was totally the right thing, and you are completely right to highlight it. I think that they've done that very well. It's a challenging problem to get that balance right between locking it down, controlling it, but also allowing it to grow fast. And you're completely right to highlight this.
Now, I would say one of the top concerns we get from people, and I'm not talking about people who say poo-poo, no NDI, no IP, but people who are using it every day. They're like, what about things like bandwidth and security and IP-based video, and what kind of lag does security put on the whole process? Because people are starting now that NDI can get outside of the facility, and we've got NDI communicating with other devices via the cloud, via remote, and those workflows. Does that security level layer become something that becomes a problem? Is it an opportunity? Because there are a lot of people who do have that concern. Not so much as a content creator, when you're making video, that's your asset, that's your prize, that's your life. It's not people worried about, in the classic sense, of someone hacking and bringing down my production. It's more someone getting access to my content before, and I'm not getting paid for it, or it shouldn't be out, it's not finished yet, and all of a sudden my credibility, my brand, my gets ruined a little bit. So talk a little bit about that layer of security and what that means for NDI now.
Yeah, so I think NDI actually has made a very good balance there. I think that, so first of all, I think the mental model, if you will, is that on the local network, where you're local, ease of use is what matters. You need to be able to plug in a camera and it works. And if you required passwords and security and tokens and keys in order for that to work, that would certainly make it far harder to adopt. So the mental model is, we make it super easy on the local network. You control your local network, you physically control it. But the moment it goes out over the internet, it's got to be super secure. And so NDI Remote has security built in, and NDI Remote is built on top of Quick, which is by its very nature secure. It is a fully encrypted protocol, and we allow you to specify the access controls and the passwords in order to control and encrypt your stream. So the basic idea is we keep it super easy to integrate. You don't need to worry about anything. You plug it in and it works on your local network. But the moment you go outside that network, security becomes very, very important. And so that is, the approach that NDI have taken, and I think it's the right one. And I think that is the philosophy that was taken, and hopefully it still makes sense.
It does make sense. We finished up a little early, which is great, amazing for the two of us. Usually we run over, but I'm gonna throw a question out to you because if you also recall, one of the first things I requested that we see was an NDI audio mixer. Audio is so important to video, and if your production has bad audio, people won't watch it. And there finally is the first NDI audio mixer out there, but at the same time we have this company called Dante, who's known in the audio space, trying to cross over into the AV space a little bit. And what are your thoughts on that? Is this a war that's headed for a showdown, or is this like going to be different flavors of Blu-ray that'll eventually adopt and merge with each other? Where do you see that going? Dante versus NDI.
Um, the first of all, I think that the competition is great. NDI has never shied away from it. We believe that if we're all on an IP network, we can coexist. And we believe that honestly, people bringing out new solutions that solves problems better is great for everybody. So I have the utmost respect for Dante. They're friends of mine. I think they're great. I think that they approach the problem from a different perspective. However, I think that NDI is very software based. It's very computer based. It is the best way to connect one piece of software to another. So if you believe that the world is a software-based future, which I do, then NDI is the right approach. Other protocols tend to take far more the approach that they're trying to replace and achieve the reliability of hardware, which has got some great things. There's some good reasons to do that. It's a different problem. And so I think if you're trying to connect your vMix to your TriCaster to your VisRT to your etc. I mean, in the cloud where one's on your phone. I mean, this is what NDI does really, really well. Others have not yet done that as well, and I believe that that's something that is a core part of the NDI, DNA that still makes it special and is still truly important. And if you look, where is this world developing? How are these technologies developing? That still seems to be the right path, even after 5 years. So I think if you get truly down to the problem and you make sure that you're solving the real problems in the market, you should feel confident with where you are. And that's why I I welcome other approaches to IP video. That makes everybody stronger. But NDI is still, I believe, on the right path, and I believe in that.
Spoken like a proud parent, Andrew, like a proud parent. Thank you
That's exactly
much
right.
so much for being on the show. Every time we have a guest on the show, we always like to give them like a couple of minutes to just, tell us whatever you want to say about what you're doing with your life, where the technology is, anything you want to talk about. The floor is yours. You got a minute or two, and just wrap up NDI November for us and our audience, please.
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't know what. It is funny how I've been working in computer-based video now for, oh, I'm old, aren't I? 20 years, and I am as excited about it today as I was 20 years ago. And I think 20 years ago, it was funny to think that when we first started, we were working on computers that weren't fast enough to even do real-time video, but we bet on the fact that they would become fast enough. And that bet has played out. So it's, when I look around and see what people are doing today, it's just amazing to see how far things have come and to see how far it has all come together in a way that we believed in, but it's great to have seen it done. And I think that I'm lucky to have been there when it wasn't possible and seen it become possible, and then contributed a little bit to that, both through what we did with TriCasters, what we did with Video Toaster, and then what we did with NDI. And I feel as excited today as I did then, because I see a lot of big change ahead. There's this moved from just being something that we produce as kind of enthusiasts and professionals in video to being far broader. And that's an exciting place to be. And I believe in it. And I continue to work, and that this remains what I believe in and what I do. So I'm working on cool stuff still.
Awesome wrap up. And maybe sometime in the future, we'll get you back on the show. We'll talk about artificial intelligence in video. Maybe at some point you'll tell us what you're really up to. But this was great. Thank you so much for being on
Been
the
my
show.
pleasure.
For everyone, this is it for NDI November. This was our wrap up. I think what we're going to do is roll some commercials. Then we're going to do our Q&A. And then we'll go into our prize winners. So Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show. I haven't seen you in a while. I'll have to make sure that I get to Texas and we have a sandwich or something and get together, because it's always great talking to you. And thank you so
Absolutely.
much for being a part of this.
Totally my pleasure. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. NDI November, we're a wrap. And now we're going to go to the commercials as a Q&A, and we're going to announce our prize winners. Thank you very much, guys.